Hey guys, it's Goosebumps Completionist, and today I'm bringing you another book versus episode video. In today's video, we're going to be looking at Night of the Living Dummy 3, book versus episode. The book I gave a 3.9 out of 5. I think it's a good book. It has some really solid writing and prowess to it. Just kind of fumbles in areas and makes me feel a little bit disappointed by the end of it. But the episode, I gave a 4.7 out of 5, and I love this thing. The changes they made from the book, I think this should have been what the book was. And yeah, it has a little bit of issues to it, but really great episode. One of the best of the show, in my opinion. Now, in these book versus episode videos, you know, I tend to compare the books to the episode. We run down some things. Normally we start off with characters, which version of the story did characters better, which one did atmosphere better. Sometimes we run down aesthetics, and we will be covering some aesthetics here, and we'll get to those when we get to it. Which one did those better? We're going to talk about overall plot, which one had a better overall plot, which one had a better climax, and which one had a better ending. Now, from the point disparity, you might think that this is going to be a runaway, and it might very well be. But I want to say that the book does have some things I think the book does some things better than the episode, and we'll get to those. And I don't think the book is a total wash, right? So, let's get into the characters. Let's start off there because that's the easiest thing to do. Let's start off with the main character, Trina. In the book, Trina is kind of a prankster. But she has more of a mature head on her shoulders. She's not really the brightest bulb in the box. I think Dan comes off a little bit smarter than her in the book. At some points, Dan's the one that puts together the cookie crumbs, and she's kind of late to catch on. The biggest stakes with her character that we get to know is that she really wants to go to summer camp, and if Slappy gets her in trouble, you know, she can't go to summer camp. She has a monologue, but it's not really deep. It's very superficial. But she is a very proactive protagonist. She's very active in the story. Her character dynamics bounce off the other characters really nicely. Can't really complain too much. In the episode, she's more of a mature character. I think the events from the year prior of the prank that she pulled on Zane, I do think that that's still a part of her personality, but here, I don't know. I guess it's the actress who portrays her. I don't know her name, but she did a phenomenal job playing Trina here. She seems more empathetic. She seems more in tune with her surroundings. It's not really just Dan coming together, you know, with everything going on. She is a little more smarter, a little more savvy, and I guess it's the handling of her character overall that makes me gravitate to her more, because we do see some character growth in the book between, you know, her, Dan, and Zane, the main three characters, but here it actually catches on a little bit and sticks with her throughout the book and does not get, like, you know, dismantled by the second half. So for that, I'm going to give the edge to Trina to the episode. I think Trina's really great in the episode. Not taking anything away from the book. She's still fine in the book, but I just like her more here. For Dan, I'll keep Dan kind of brief. Dan is the prankster in the book. You know, he has this witty personality to him, kind of snarky. I really enjoy his character. I like how he bounces off the other characters and feels kind of different from Trina and Zane. He's smart, he's proactive, you know, he's kind of superficial like Trina in the book, but he's still well written. I mean, he's fine. I mean, he doesn't really go too deep, but he's a fine, you know, side protagonist. The episode, the guy who plays him does a fine job at portraying Dan. Dan's still the same type of character, so I'm going to tie Dan here. I really have no preference. I think he's solid in both. Now, Zane... Zane is a tough cookie. In the episode, not the episode, but the book, he's you know, a scaredy cat. He's a wimp. He's kind of afraid of everything. Um, and I think he comes across a little more afraid than the episode at points. But the episode does introduce something about Zane, bringing like a Conquering Your Fears book and stuff, and kind of, you know, makes fun of Zane in, I guess, a metal way. But in the book, he goes through this little arc where he wants revenge on his cousins, and there's some character growth, but then he's like blackmailing his cousins in the second half at a point, and I don't know, he's in and out of the story, and in the book more so than the episode, and in the episode he's more proactive, and the stuff that happens to him in the episode is very menacing and outright frightening. And I think Hayden Christensen does Zane perfect here. And I think his acting and the changes they made to his character kind of elevate it by putting him in some more stake-filled scenes. And I don't know. I think ultimately I prefer the episode Zane. The other characters, we can talk about the mom and the dad. I'll kind of loop them here. The dad is the ventriloquist guy. In both stories, he's a ventriloquist. In the book, he's like a retired ventriloquist, or he just does it part-time, and now he's taking up photography. In the episode, I think it's still implied that's the same thing, but he's still like the wild and zany dad. The guy who plays him does a fantastic job. I like them both in either way, so I'm going to tie the dad. The mom, I think, has a more emotional scene in the book. In the episode, she seems like a more loving aunt to her nephew, Zane. And I think there's a more pivotal scene in the book that at least comes off more emotional. In the episode, they do replicate it, even though it's kind of out of order compared to the book. So, I don't know. Some slight changes here and there, but she works fine in both, so I'll tie the mom. And then the uncle character, Zane's father, he's in the episode, but he's just dropping off Zane, as in the book, he's there. But in the book, he is kind of pressuring the kid's dad to give Zane a new camera, just like give him something free. And that's causing some type of conflict with the uncle and the father in the story. And I feel like since he serves more of an impact to the book, I'll give the edge to the uncle in the book, even though he is not the greatest character ever. He's kind of annoying. But yeah, there's that. Now, we also got the collection of dummies, and I think we see more dummy presence in the book, at least in terms of names and specifics. In the episode, they're just kind of treated like any old dummy. So for like the crowd of dummies, I'll give it to the book just a little bit. Even though the episode, there is a lot more to it, specifically with one, and I'm going to treat it like its own character here, and that is Rocky. Rocky in the book is used for more pranks, and doesn't really evolve from that. As in the episode, he's actually, in the flesh, a character. And I think he's really fun, and I dig him. So I'm going to give the edge to Rocky to the episode. Now, Slappy. Slappy. In the book, we get introduced to Slappy early on. The spell gets read early, but he doesn't really come to play till the final act. But when we do see him, he's having his, I guess, typical quips that we're used to from this book moving onward with him. He's kind of funny in some parts, but still the same old Slappy at the heart of it. In the episode, the stuff introduced to Slappy, like his abilities and stuff, kind of defy the formula with him a little more. I think he's more menacing. I don't know if it's the way the dummy looks, or maybe it's Cal Dodd's voice, elevating Slappy for me. But I think Slappy's handled way better in the episode. I think there's a lot more to his character, same quips, and you cannot beat that finale. What happens to him? That's incredible. Absolute gold. So I'm going to give the edge to the episode for Slappy. And that's essentially the characters. Now, atmosphere. The atmosphere in the episode is so incredible. I mean, the setting they chose, it fits the book perfectly. And I mean that. I mean, it's a fun setting to an episode. I mean, something about that attic looks so creepy. something about the house and the outdoors. It feels a bit grander than the other Dummy episodes. Maybe not Bride. Bride does try to jam pack a lot into it for being a single length episode, but this one just has that homey setting in a good way. The book, the Prowse is excellent in the book. I mean, superb. The atmosphere is there. It works fine, splendidly well too. Honestly, I love them both. I'm going to deadlock the atmosphere. They're great. Honestly, great. So yeah, next we're going to go through aesthetics. Now, I think there might be a few things here we can bring up. Aesthetics. And these are things like slight changes from the episode compared to the book that do things a little bit differently stylistically. So the first thing we can bring up here is the handling of the other dummies. In the book, they're treated more like pranks until the final act. In the episode, Slappy is pretty much insinuating to have animated them and they're alive with him. So for that change, you know, I'm going to give it to the episode. That aesthetic works way better. There's a thing done in the episode that's not done in the book, and that is something done to Zane at some point in the story. I don't want to spoil what it is, but let's just say Slappy, you know, puts part of himself into him. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah, I give that, you know, Bird being absent in the book obviously goes to the episode here, but that is such a great change, such a great pivot. I love that. Love that. And yeah, I think that's essentially it for aesthetics that I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah. Now let's get into overall plot. Now, the plot of the book, it's essentially a rundown like this. Dad brings home a dummy that he found in a dumpster. The kids read the card. Slappy apparently animates, but we don't see Slappy till the second half of the book. Their cousin Zane and their uncle come over. Some antics ensue. They realize that Zane is behind it. There's a little reset in the middle portion, and the pranks continue on. These characters have grown closer, but then start to drift apart a little bit. And then we see Slappy in the final act and wraps up the book. The episode is kind of similar, except the dad kind of brings home a trunk that he bought from a shop. And their cousin Zane is coming over. Instead of just Zane and the uncle, it's just Zane in the episode. And antics ensue, kind of like the book, except I think in the episode they transplant some of the antics from the second half to kind of change it up and make it feel less stale. I think the antics are a bit better. I guess we can go very quickly back to aesthetics. The pranks in the story. The Zane room scene with Rocky was incredible. Them changing up the pranks comparatively to the book goes to the episode as well. But going back to the overall plot, yeah, the whole I think the reset happens there again with Zane, even though it feels more forced in the episode. And the second half, the parents leave the house this time, and the dummies are all alive, and of course, you know, they animate, and all the kids are working together this time, as opposed to the book where it's, at one point it's just Trina and Dan handling Slappy. In the episode, it's Trina, Dan, and Zane. And the whole final act is completely different near the end. But I think it's way better in the episode. The final act here is so much more iconic. It's a lot more stakes filled. It's over the top, but in the best way. What happens to Slappy is incredible. What's revealed about his character, what he ends up doing to certain characters, it's incredible. The plot here feels way better in comparison to the book. I will stress, the plot of this episode, written by Neil Shusterman, is phenomenal. This should have been what the book was. Seriously. And it makes me think that if R.L. Stine ever passes away, you know, I'm dreading that day, I think the perfect person, or maybe one of the ghostwriters or the head ghostwriters that should take over Goosebumps, should be Neil Shusterman, if he wants to. Because this is incredible. the plot here is pretty much tantamount better than the book, in my opinion. So there's that. The climax. The climax in the book essentially it involves Trina and Dan finding out that Slappy's behind the second half of the book's pranks, and they get kind of meaner and more stake-filled, and it gets kind of rehashy into the former books beforehand. The episode does do its fair share as well, what the book did, but I think the climax ultimately is they end up cornering Slappy in the attic, and they try to read the card to put him to sleep, but it doesn't work, and they may or may not have triggered all the other dummies inside of the attic, and the dummies may or may not assist or help Slappy. I'm not going to spoil what it is, but that's essentially that. And then in the episode, it's completely different. Slappy did something to Zane and brings Zane up to the attic, and the kids end up meeting them up there, and there's a whole different climax involving Slappy and the kids, and there's dummies that are potentially alive that get involved and help the kids handle Slappy in a fun way. It's bonkers. But if I had a preference, I will give it to the episode. The episode has a way better climax, way more entertaining, way more stakes filled, and I love it. The book's climax is fine. It just that build up to that point, I felt kind of deflated when I got there, just a little bit. But yeah, the episode's climax is fantastic. Now the ending, I guess would be the twist. The ending in the book, it mirrors the episode very well. Zane is saying goodbye and leaving the family. In the book, since the thing in the episode never happened to him, he's just saying goodbye, and he's gotten kind of his revenge on his cousins, and his cousins are really pissed off with him, and something happens to him where he gets sent home with a parting gift, let's just say. And in the episode, we see the kids, saying this was a great adventure of ours. We need to continue this on, and Zane's inviting his cousins over to his house next, and they seem to all be friends, and he's saying goodbye, but there's a twist involved with Zane that the kids see and are mortified by, and I'll just leave it at that. And that's where the episode ends off. In terms of twists, I think the book's effective because, Trina and Dan, I guess, got their comeuppance for what happened in the events off page prior to the book, but it's not as near as effective as the episode. The episode does it so much better here. There's an actual twist ending here that I think is pretty good. Okay, so when it comes to which one do I think is superior, do I think the book or episode is better for Night of the Living Dummy 3? I think the book offered some serviceable characters. I think Dan, in some ways, is better than the episode, but I think they're even in a lot of ways. The dad is a really good character in the book. The atmosphere is excellent. I think the uncle character is better by default, but the book does hold up comparatively to the episode, y'all, in terms of characters and atmosphere. And I'm being honest. I mean, they're pretty much matched here, equally. And I think where the book kind of just falls back a little bit is everything else in comparison. The aesthetics, the plot, the climax, the ending, all go to the episode. And since the episode's so evenly matched on those things, I think it's a clear runaway that if I had to say which one's superior, it's going to be the episode. And it's by a long shot, in my opinion. I'm flabbergasted that Neil Shusterman and the creators of the show took this book, morphed it, made some subtle changes that should have probably been there, and made the episode tantamount better. Now, there are some things that the episode does kind of botch up, does keep the middle portion of the book where the whole Zane reveal happens. In the book, I think it's a little more appropriate because there's still some potential to come with this character. But in the episode, it cuts away that potential because after that's revealed, something's done with Slappy, and it kind of makes that whole first, whatever minutes there were beforehand when Zane was behind all this feel kind of pointless and kind of forced. Just to drive tension in between the characters for no reason. And there are some things, with Slappy, that visually don't look appealing, but I think Slappy, everything else is done better than the book. And the episode does have its flaws, and the book's biggest sin is that it just, by the end, it takes away character progression, kind of falls flat, kind of falls into that retread idea, kind of feels rushed. But they're both serviceable, and this is a book franchise, right? You need to read the book. Go read the book first, and then go watch the episode. I think for majority of you, it seems you'll probably end up really enjoying this third book, Night of the Living Dummy 3, or maybe even loving it. Have at it. It's not really for me, but I would understand if you say you like this. It's a well-written book, has great atmosphere, characters are fine. Can't ask for more. The episode, I think, just offers a little more. I think most people would agree that the episode is on par with the book, if not better. I just think it's better. But I think both ways you go, you're going to enjoy them for different reasons and different ways. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Night of the Living Dummy 3. Let me know down in the comment section, which one do you think is better? Do you think the book is better, or do you think the episode is better? I'm dying to know. And I'll see you next time.